Starting हो गया ना. Hangout on air is like go to links, copy the ऊपर वाला, put it on there and tell them to log in. Tell them to go to YouTube on this. That's it. That's all you start. You'll see the number of viewers slowly coming in, and then when all of them are there, start off. Yeah. ठीक है, यहाँ तो इनवाइट भी कर सकते हो, इसकी भी ज़रूरत है. ठीक है, चैट वीडियो वगैरह कुछ है नहीं आ जाएगा. लेट देम कम इन, देखो वीडियो देखने के साथ. No, it's like we can't ask questions. They can ask only questions through chat.
So I guess we have 4 viewers, 6 now. It's increasing. Alright guys, I can see that there are 7 viewers as of now. Also, you cannot talk here, or you'll have to send me a text if you have a question or anything.
In chat.
Sorry? In chat, yes. In chat, you'll have to ask me a question if you have to. Up to 8 viewers. How many are we more expecting? How many more viewers are we expecting?
Got it? You got it?
All right, guys. Also, just to check, am I audible to all of you? Those who are there, am I audible? Just let me know on chat if you're audible. Am I audible to you guys? Am I audible, guys? All right. People are saying that I'm audible. Then let's go ahead with this. So how this will work is that you guys can hear me. I obviously can't hear you. So whatever doubts and questions you have, you can straight away tell me that what exactly whatever doubt you have, and I'll address it. I'll look at the chat and I'll address it. From there, the next thing that we're looking at is that if I just need to know a little background about the people, those who have joined this particular webinar, because I, depending upon that, I will be, placing as to how I need to go ahead with this. So if you could tell me on the chat itself, if how many of you are experienced MUNers, what is the rough experience that we have? What is the rough amount of experience that we have? So, well, guys, I'm asking you, what kind of experience do we have? How many MUNs have we done? If you could just tell me, give me a rough idea as a delegate and as an EB member. Guys, if I'm audible, then you need to answer my questions. How many MUNs have we done? Come on, give me a quick reply. You can't be too slow with this. All right, so been to one MUN, which was DT, 0 MUNs by Vedant. Okay. What else? That's your first MUN. Okay. So can we say that mostly we have first timers? 0 MUNs. All right. Okay. None. All right. Okay. Okay. It's again your first. None. 0. Okay. I see. So basically we have first timers here. So let's go about with a little background on the UN when we talk about the United Nations. That it's basically, you can say, an international government, okay, that looks after the international affairs, and it was started in 1945 after the Second World War, and the organization that we had prior to this thing, prior to the United Nations, was the League of Nations, and the League of Nations was formed after the First World War, and yeah, fine. People are still addressing the first question itself. All right. So, well, I understand that you guys are first timers. Some of you have done 1 or 2 MUNs. That's completely fine. There's a start always. So, you first of all address the background, what I'm going through. I can see that certain people have just joined in, so I'm just telling you what I'm doing right now. We're just focusing on the background. So there was League of Nations. League of Nations could not prevent the Second World War, hence it was dissolved. And since League of Nations was dissolved, then they thought that it is a failed organization. It could not serve the purpose for which it was established initially, which was to prevent international conflict and howsoever the Second World War in any case took place. So yes, so we basically established the United Nations. When the establishment of the United Nations was taking place, what basically happened is that there are certain countries across the globe that were not, you can say, ready to join this particular organization without an incentive. Okay, so as you might know, that there are certain permanent members within the United Nations system. Okay, and these are the 5 countries that were given that amount of you can say leverage within the system, so as to they are also interested in being a part of the system. Hence the P5 or the permanent 5, as you might know, is the organize is was established rather, where these countries were given a special power, which is the veto that I'll talk about later. And this particular veto was given to them in order to make them interested in being a part of this organization. It's rather a power given to them so that they have an upper hand as compared to other countries. So if you could like any of the first timers could tell me what are the P5s, if you can just tell me who are the P5s. I'll not be wasting much time on it. If you can type fast, then I'll wait. If you can tell me who are the P5s. Fine, let's chuck it. So, well, the P5s are US, UK, Russia, China, and France. Okay. So when the United Nations was established, there was no Russia, there was USSR, and the seat of the USSR in the capacity of the P5 was, you can say, taken up by the Russian Federation after USSR was dissolved back in 1991. All right, so United Nations is basically an international organization. There are several international organizations out there, such as the NATO, such as the EU, and then there was the Warsaw Pact. Then there's the WTO, there's the IMF. So there are various international organizations with different, you can say, different purposes, okay, and different goals. And now, if you can tell me, like, when we talk about the UN, like, what is your rough idea about what is the UN? If you can just think of it, or if you could just type it out in the chat box, like, what is your rough idea of what the UN does? So if you can tell me a rough idea about what the UN does, or if you can tell me about its primary organizations, like what are the organizations that work under it? Any rough idea that you have, anything at all. You can tell me its functions, or probably you can tell me, but anything at all that you know. It debates and tries to solve issues like poverty, hunger, etc. Okay, that's Aryan. So Aryan is saying that it debates and tries to solve issues like poverty, hunger, etc. Yes, it does. Of course, it does. But the primary objective of the UN is to maintain international peace and security. Okay, so anything. Yeah, that's right. Arun is also telling us that the various organizations that work under the United Nations, or basically the various branches or divisions of the United Nations, are WHO, UNICEF, UNESCO. So yes, that's very correct. And coming back to like what is its functions, if anyone asks you that what is the function of the UN, it basically states that it is an organization that keeps a check on international peace and security. It maintains international peace and security. That is the motto of the UN. That is what the UN aims to do. Okay. Now, moving on from there, the primary document that that governs the actions and the conduct of the United Nations is the UN Charter. I'm sure you've heard of this particular document. It's something like which is the constitution for India. Okay, like Constitution of India is the parent document for any form of legislation being formed within the country. Okay, any act or any bill which is passed in the parliament cannot supersede or exceed the powers given to it, the parliament, by the constitution. So the constitution is basically the writing document that deals with any form of law that has to be formed within the country. So what happens in case of the international organizations is that similarly any resolution. So if a bill is passed in the parliament, a resolution is passed via United Nations committee. It is the same thing. Okay, so the resolution that is there in the United Nations system cannot exceed the power given to it by the United Nations Charter. Okay, now there are various chapters in the United Nations, and if you read, it's a very beautiful document, and it has tried to it has tried to do a lot of you can say, it has tried to come up with various uh, other you can say divisions, and it has tried to cover each and every possible aspect within the UN that an international government might have to look through. So yes, further, there's some problem. Okay, no, it's working. It's working. Okay, people, you don't have to video call me. I'll paste the link again. People, those who have just joined in. Join here. All right. So you just have to join there. People, you don't have to call me. Just go to the YouTube link that I have sent you right now. Yeah, so Sharvari is telling us about the P5s. Is it streaming late? Yeah. Yes, that's absolutely correct. USA, UK, Russia, China, and France. So, there's no time lag. यहाँ तो नहीं आ रहा है. All right, moving on from there. So there are various principal organs of the United Nations. The main ones being the United Nations General Assembly. There are various General Assemblies we'll discuss about later. There's the United Nations General Assembly. There is the United Nations Security Council. Then there is the UN ECOSOC. There is the ICJ International Court of Justice. There is the Secretariat, and there is the Trusteeship Council. So you can say that there are six principal organs of the United Nations. And now going one by one, I would like to start with the General Assembly. So the General Assembly is nothing but coming together of all the nations discussing one particular issue. And this one particular issue could be anything ranging from security measures to finance to economy to healthcare to poverty to refugee issues, anything and everything at all. Now, sometimes when a country does not want to send an international diplomat, but rather a specialist of a particular issue who will function in the capacity of an international diplomat, then they send it to a particular sect, or you can say a subdivision of the GA, of the General Assembly. So there are 6 divisions of the General Assembly. So usually people call it the GA1, GA2, GA3, GA4, GA5, and GA6. However, there are names given, like the specific names given to these General Assemblies. The first one, which is the GA1, it is known as the DISAC, which is the Disarmament and Security. The second one that is given is the second one that is there, which is the GA2, that will be the SOCUM, which is social and humanitarian. GA3 is ECOFIN, economic and financial. GA4 is SPECPOL, special politics and decolonization. GA5 is budgetary, which you can just tell that yes, all the budget issues are handled by the budgetary. Specifically, when the United Nations is planning to send in its own forces that I will talk about later. And what will be the cost? How will that be done? How many men are to be sent? What will be their pay and things like that? Who will pay for them? Things like that. And then there's GA6, like any convention, any legal document that has to pass within the GA. It is basically through the GA6. Okay. Now, moving on from there. Uh, so these were the six GAs that you have in place, and apart from these, I would now like to move to the United Nations Security Council, which you can say that in a way is probably the uh, highest decision-making body of the UNSC. Why do I say so? Is because if there is a resolution passed by one of the United Nations organization, okay, United Nations, say committee, let's talk about the HRC, okay, and the HRC is telling one of the countries to do something. Now, it is not, the country is not legally bound to do that in specific, like they don't really have to do it, okay. There's no you can say they're not bound legally to do so. However, if this resolution is presented in front of the UNSC and the UNSC ratifies the contents of the resolution, basically it ratifies all the operatives of the resolution, then the country that was asked to do something, it will become compelling for them. Otherwise, suitable sanctions and actions shall be taken against that particular country. So you can say that UNSC can make a resolution legally binding on other countries. At this point, if we have any doubts, you can tell me if we have any doubts. Do we have any doubts right now? Guys, do we have any doubts as till now? Like we have spoken about various organizations. No doubts. All right. Arden says no doubts. Other people, come on. I need to know. This has to be a little more interactive, and there's no other way that I can get your doubts right now. So it's best that if you can just type it out. Prateek says no. All right. All right. So let's move ahead with this then. So the United Nations Security Council is the primary decision-making body. As you can figure out that the UNSC is particularly talking about security. Now, security can depend upon anything. It could be on economy, on your economic status. Like if your economy is not doing well, it will hamper your security at some point of time. If not immediately, then at some point of time, it will come down to your security, your international security. Secondly, even refugee problems, anything that can hamper the security of one or more countries can be discussed by the United Nations Security Council. And United Nations Security Council's, you can say the mandate of the United Nations Security Council is probably the widest possible mandate that can be given to any committee in any international organization. Because I have never come across something that the UNSC does not have the authority to talk about. It can talk about anything and everything at all. So, well, so there cannot be a situation really where someone can say that the UNSC breached its mandate. yes, or like they obviously can't pass a decision on the Indian Constitution or what happens in the United Nations Federal Court. No, they cannot do that. But yes, anything that has to do with international peace and security, they can basically pass an order on that. Now, moving on from there, uh, the third primary organization that I would like to talk about is the International Court of Justice. Now, the ICJ is one of those forums where if one country has a dispute with the other country, they can make an appeal to that particular. They can make an appeal to the ICJ, and the ICJ will take this up and listen to both the parties and give a judgment. Now, do not be fooled by the word judgment for the simple reason because this judgment again is not legally binding. Do we understand what is legally binding? Do we understand what is legally binding? We do. All right. I see. I see. Okay. Great. So, perfect. So, when the ICJ judgment is passed, it is not legally binding. The countries are not bound to follow it in particular. But when we talk about something like the UNSC resolution, it is legally binding. So, how? What is the entire point? Is that the United Nations Security Council does not have the expertise to give a judgment on a question of law, if the law was breached or not. However, if we talk about the organization, which is the ICJ, which is the International Court of Justice, it has the expertise but not the authority. So, what basically happens is that when a judgment of the ICJ is passed, suppose it is a judgment against my own country, and I was acting as the agent of that particular country in the ICJ, it could be against my country, but I'm not bound to follow it yet. Okay, I could be told that I have to follow it, but I'm not legally bound to really oblige to the judgment given by the ICJ. So what happens is that this particular judgment is sent to the United Nations Security Council, and the United Nations Security Council will take a call on the fact that if this decision, if passed by the UNSC, can be made legally binding or not. So it will be made. It will be made legally binding if uh, the UNSC feels that whatsoever the judgment has been passed and the interpretation of the question of law is correct, that justice has been done, then they will make it legally binding. So this is ICJ. Talking about the Trusteeship Council, then it was an organization, a subdivision of the UN that was established to rebuild the countries that had experienced colonialism, and right now it is dissolved. Okay, Trusteeship Council has been dissolved because there were hardly any colonies left, and there was no point having the Trusteeship Council because the same, uh, you can say, the same function can be performed by the GF4, which is special politics and decolonization. So that is one of the reasons why this was dropped. Then the another major aspect is the Secretariat of the UN. So obviously the the United Nations Secretary General, Deputy Secretary General, your Under Secretary Generals, they all are a part of this particular Secretariat. Okay, and this particular Secretariat looks after the smooth running of the United Nations organizations, and it is also referred to as the International Public Service Commission. It has like an examination and all that. If you crack, you make it, and then you keep working through it. Uh, all right. Moving on from there. So what all? Let's just recap. Like let's do a recap of things we've done. We've done what are international organizations? What are their functions? What do they do? Uh, what is the why was UN established? What was League of Nations? First World War, Second World War, UN was established. Then from there, let's move on to the concept of MUNing. Okay. Okay. Another thing, it's not MUN, it's not moon, it's not anything that you call. It's MUN. It's an abbreviated form. You have to stick to it. You cannot just make something on your own. So it's an MUN, a Model United Nations Conference. So the Model United Nations Conference is basically nothing but a simulation of the UN committees. Okay. So a simulation of the UN committees basically mean that the UN, any committee per se, is going to function in, and students are going to do a role play of the delegates, while another set of students who are a little more experienced than the delegates will judge you. Okay. Acting in the capacity of the secretariat. Okay. So there is the executive board that you call is basically then becomes a part of the secretariat. Now executive board is a temporary secretariat because the executive board members are elected from the member nations itself. Like the you can say the UNSC presidency is like rotational every 2 years, and recently India was also chairing the UNSC by Hardeep Singh Puri. So United Nations Security Council is basically like this is how it functions. And now moving on to specifically the MUN aspect of this. Model United Nations is a concept that dates back when it started in India in 2003. To be honest, like it primarily started in 2003. There was a time when there were only 3 to 4 conferences happening in the country. However, as of now, there are 1,600 conferences happening every year. Okay, and 1,600 conferences happen every year, and the number of MUNs have increased. So you really need to decide as to what and which MUN to go for. Okay, and there are various circuits established. Like India is very proud to have one of the top circuits in the world, which is the Delhi circuit, which directly comes after the Boston circuit, which is ranked 2 by the bestdelegate.com. So well, moving on from there, the next thing that I would like to talk about is we will not jump onto the rules of procedure as of now, and we will right now stick to something which is the research methodology. So you all know that there is an agenda given to you guys when it comes to research methodology, right? Like there is an agenda, all right? I'm sure you have got your agendas, right? Can someone tell me if you guys have started research? Have you guys started research? Have you guys started research? If you can tell me if you guys have started research. Have you guys started research? I want to know as to like how are you like really going? Okay, kind of. Nope. Okay. Yes, but just started. Okay. Okay. Avni says no. Pratik says no. All right. Okay. All right. Not a problem. Not a problem. So well, now we'll divide the research into several parts. Okay. And how we will do it is in this fashion. So you make agenda research, your country research, and dirt research. Okay, I will explain what these three are in uh, like in parts. So we'll start with the the first thing that you do is your agenda research. Usually people start with country research, which is something that I don't recommend. You start with agenda research. Okay, just forget whatever country you are. You do your agenda research. All right. So when you're starting with your agenda research, the first thing that you do, in my opinion, is that you get your background guide. Okay, and you skim through your background guide, you scan through your background guide, you read through your background guide. Okay, there's several stages to it. Skim, basically just see that what all things are there in it. Okay, you're not taking in anything at all. You're not really reading it, or you know, you don't have to really go into it. Okay, but uh, you just stick to what are the basic contents of my agenda. Okay, skimming is done, you've skimmed through it. Okay, the next thing that you take up is uh, that you take up is you basically divide your given agenda. Okay, like suppose if I am talking about uh, if you can just suggest me an agenda. All right, let's talk about control consequences and regulation of psychotropic substances. Okay, so psychotropic substance is what you basically break this agenda down. So I'll repeat the agenda again for you. Okay, like let's suppose we're sitting in the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime, and I'm going to discuss control consequences and regulation of psychotropic substances. Now, what are the contents of my agenda? There's control, there's consequences, and there's regulation of psychotropic substances. Okay, so I know that I have to talk about I have to talk about controlling, okay, regulating, and basically keeping a check on something. Okay, now what is that something? So first thing I look up is it's just that I'm just googling each and everything at the very first stage, where I'm going and talking about there is something called a psychotropic substances. When I Google it, the Google page tells me that psychotropic substances anything that crosses the blood-brain barrier. Okay, now which would include everything ranging from alcohol to basically alcohol or ethanol to marijuana, hash, MDMA, ecstasy, amphetamine, hero, coke, everything. Okay, and prescribed drugs, non-prescribed drugs, each and everything. It will include anything that crosses the blood-brain barrier. Okay, so now you know that you have to control something that you know about. You just know that what you're talking about. Like initially, when I throw the word psychotropic substances, there are chances that some people might not know about it. So you have a rough idea as to how these can be controlled. Okay, you do a little reading on the internet, and then you again come back to your background guide. Now when you come back to your background guide, you basically learn that your background guide is having various aspects to it. Okay, so now you start reading it. Okay, and now you do stage reading. So what is stage reading over here? I'm reading through it, there is something that I don't understand. Okay, so like there's one page, and on that page I have 7 different things that I don't know about or I don't understand. I will Google each and every 7 of those things. Okay, I will simply Google each and every 7 of those things, and I will go and do in-depth research on those 7 things. I will learn that what they are, and if I didn't know, then I have to know before I go ahead and proceed with the background guide. Because background guide is something which is like, you can say, the periphery of the entire issue. Okay, it covers everything, but it does not reach the center of the issue. Okay, so since it is the periphery of the entire issue, you will basically talk about, you will basically take your background guide, divide it into, like, you'll read, you'll underline things you don't understand, you'll underline, and then you will research further upon it. Now moving on from there, once you have completed this with your background guide, the next thing that you do is finding issues. That, okay, control of, we were talking about controlling psychotropic substances, all right? So what are the issues when it comes to controlling psychotropic substances? What is it that the state governments are not able to control psychotropic substances? So this is issue identification. At this stage, you're trying to find out the problem. You're trying to find that where are we going wrong, right? So over here, you will basically say that you will basically divide your background guide into several parts, and then you will focus upon that what are the issues. So see, I cannot discuss about a problem unless I cannot give you a solution until and unless I know a problem. Like, why are we having this training session? We're having this training session because most of you are first timers. That is a problem. The solution to it is a training session. So there's problem identification, and then there is a solution. So right now you go ahead and find a solution to your problem. Okay. So uh, moving on from there, this is like, you can say that once you have identified your problems, these problems can basically work as your basic broad guidelines as to what you really want to address at the end of the day. Okay, inside committee, like there's something called a sub agenda. In technical terms, it is called a moderated caucus. Okay, so like if I'm talking about psychotropic substances, then a sub agenda could be that sale of psychotropic substances for funding terrorism. Okay, like why do we need to control it? Because if we don't control it, then where does terrorist organizations have control over them? If terrorist organizations have control over them and they have a market to sell this particular commodity to, then they can generate money. That money can be used to buy weapon, recruit people, survival of an organization, and hence if they can carry out terrorist attacks. So I really need to control it. So this is my problem. Okay, so this is problem identification. So after you have identified problems, like suppose I have been through my background guide and I have like 30 different problems. Now what I do, now my background guide is useless to me. Okay, because till my problem identification point, I know that what are the issues that I have to deal with. I know about those 30 clauses that I have to form to deal with my resolution. Okay, because every problem needs a clause. I'm giving you a very hypothetical number. It could be 30, it could be 300, it could be 3. Okay, it depends on the agenda. Okay, so you don't have to freak out that I'm not getting 30. Okay, it depends from agenda to agenda, and of course experience and your thinking process. It will develop over time. So suppose if I have 30 problems, I've identified 30 problems. Now I'll go back to Google. Okay, I'll go back to Google and ask Google that what are the problems that I have. Okay, these are the problems that I have, and then you look that what are the steps various countries are taking to solve this particular issue. Okay, and you see that what is the most effective method to deal with the problem, and then you try to innovate, you try to make something new, or you try to come up with a mixture of solutions that you have out there. What Hong Kong did is that they had to really fight against money laundering. So they picked up the Singapore model and the UK model and combined the two models. I'll not go into the details, but they combined the two models and came up with their own model, okay, which directly helps uh, the the problem that was being faced by Hong Kong. Okay, so you can mix. Okay, you can think outside the box. Okay, you can think as to, okay, all of these solutions are useless to me. Okay, useless for my country, useless for any country per se. So what I do, I will go ahead and make my own solution. That'll be brilliant, but that will require a lot of research, a lot of why analysis. So what is a why analysis? So there was problem identification, there was a solution, and now there's a why analysis. So what is a why analysis? So if you say that in order to curb the control of psychotropic substances, the government should have a separate department to deal with the issue. Let's say that. Now you ask why? Why a separate department? Why can't the existing departments do it? Okay. Again, are they failing? If yes, okay, it's like you can say an algorithm. Okay, if yes, then what? Then if no, then what? You have to be prepared at each and every stage. Another set of why analysis. Okay, separate organization. Who's going to fund it? Okay, the first question that should come to your mind is any international organization going to aid them? A poor country, let's talk about Somalia or Senegal. Okay, like if international organizations are going to fund them, or certain countries are willing to fund these countries for setting up a separate body for dealing with psychotropic substances, a narcotics department basically, or similar to something which is the DEA in the United States of America. So so there was a problem, then came up the solution, and then there is the then there is the YY analysis. Okay, once I have dealt with every 30 issue with 30 solutions with YY analysis of each and every 30, my agenda research is done. Okay, there's nothing more that you may need to last through debate over the period of 3 years, 3 days. I'm sorry, over the period of 3 days. And the next, now what you do is that now you know what is happening across the globe. Okay, what are the issues? Now you will research on just those lines when it comes to country. Now what happens is that when people start with country research, before they've done their agenda research, what happens is that they start reading everything about it, its economy, its security, its policies, everything which is not useful. If I'm going to an economic committee, I don't really think that what is my army strength and what are weapons do I have or what generation of weapons am I using is much use to me. Okay, yes, at some point of time when there's a crisis introduced in the MUN, yes, it can be of some use, but you can keep that information handy. Okay, and I'll tell you one site that you can use for country research, your basic country research, not your entire country research, which is the CIA World Fact Book. Okay, you can check the CIA World Fact Book and just put in your country's name, and you'll get everything. What are the issues they're having, and what are the basic problems that they have faced in the past. So so that should deal with your country research. And when you're doing your country research now, like suppose if it was about psychotropic substances, then I've done issue identification. I just check that what all issues are there in my country, and if there are these issues, then what has my country done to solve these issues. And if they have not done something, then I cook up a justification for that. Okay, and here your country research and your diplomatic skills come into play when you have to cook up something. Okay, it's as simple as that. Cool. So this was my country research. The third thing that I will look at is the third thing that I look at is the dirt research. Now, what is dirt? Okay, so at the end of the day, I completely understand that we have to be diplomatic. We are going into a diplomatic forum. We're going to debate diplomatically, but you need to realize that at the end of the day, you're competing with someone. Okay, and at the end of the day, you have to trip someone out there to win. Okay, so that is when your dirt research comes in. Now, most of the modern United Nations conferences accept two kinds of reports, namely the UN reports and the Thomson Reuters reports. Okay, Thomson Reuters is a news agency which is based in the United States of America and is considered to be, unbiased. Okay, it also releases a few reports against the United States itself. So yes, it is considered unbiased. And however, a UN report will get precedence over a Reuters report. Okay, and in certain conferences they also accept Amnesty International, Human Rights Watch, or Red Cross. Red Cross. Okay, someone's asking. Just a second, guys. All right, so you go ahead with dirt research, and your dirt research is nothing but basically you are collecting information so as to put allegation. Dirt is basically allegation. Okay, you're throwing dirt in someone, you're putting allegation in someone so as to bring the debate down. Okay, now when you're starting with dirt research, the first thing that you deal with is there something against your own country? Because the first dirt research that you do is against your own country and prepare defense for it. Okay, because unless this is done, if you're alleging someone, you can be counter alleged, and you do not want that. Okay, because instead of cornering someone, you'll be said that you also do this. Okay, that will be your that will be your response. Okay, so moving on from there, so this is how you basically go ahead with your research and research methodology. And this is how you go ahead with your research. And Well, in this session, we'll be covering only the background and the research methodology, and this is how you go about your research. Now, if you guys have any doubts, regarding research methodology or background, you can put it up, and I'll give you a time period of 5 minutes to put it up, and I'll address each and every question. If you have else, we'll be ending this session, and in the next session that Yog will tell you about, we will take up the rules of procedure for this particular conference, which is going to be a mixture of UNA USA plus presidential statements and challenges. So guys, if you have any doubts, you can ask me. You can ask me right now. All right. So I'll go question wise. So Prerna is asking that what sources can be used for country and agenda research. All right. So sources that can be used for country research and agenda research is anything ranging from Wikipedia to the United Nations organizations. Okay, website. Okay, UN.org. But when you're quoting someone something in committee, or you're alleging in committee, giving me a data. It has to be backed by only two kinds of reports: Thomas Reuters or your UN report. Okay, but suppose if you're giving me a data which is about your country, like if I ask you like how many drug users do you have in your country, and suppose you have this only 1.2% of your population is into drug use, then drug abuse rather, everyone uses drugs, drug abuse, then you can give me anything which is like from your local your national government's report, like that for your own you can say your own statistics and defense. You can use national reports. However, like suppose if I have a national report that states that there are 1.2% of the population of Norway are uh, are not victims of drug abuse, but I have a UN report which says that 30% of Norway's population are victims of drug abuse, then the precedence will be given to the UN report. Okay. The next question that is being asked by Arden is that do we research for only the agenda or anything in the dirt research? Okay, so I don't exactly get your question. Do we research for only the agenda or anything in the dirt research? Okay, okay. So you're basically asking that if when you're doing the dirt research only, do you stick to an agenda or about anything? Yes, of course. You just stick to the agenda, okay? Because if I'm sitting in the UNODC discussing drug issues, then there's no point saying that commercial sex workers do not have a good life in the states of United States of America. I mean, that will not really make sense because that is not something that we're discussing, okay? If Prerna and Arjun are satisfied with their doubts, if the doubts have been settled, you can just let me know. Yes, Arjun, you can tell me with your what's the question that you have. That's great, great. That's great. If you have more questions, Prerna, you can let me know. do we have to give an introduction before we start our speech? Okay, speech and all, Aryan, that everything I will deal with in the rules of procedure. I will tell you when you speak what, okay, how do you speak. I will tell you each and everything. You don't have to worry about that. That will be in the next session where when we take the rules of procedure. If that is the only number of doubts we have, I would be signing off. Yeah, Prerna. So, what all does the introduction speech has to include? Again, I'll tell you. I will do this in the ROP section, which is the rules of procedure, and I'll tell you how do we go about it if we are placed at what rank in the speakers list. What is the speakers list first of all? I will tell you that if you're placed at this particular position, what you talk about, what you don't talk about, things like that. So we will take it up in the next session. Right now, we are only sticking to background and research methodology. So if that is the only number of doubts we have, I will be signing off. All right, guys. Thanks a lot. It was nice interacting with you. And I hope to see you guys at the conference. And of course, before that, for the ROP training session. And just go out there, research well. And also, I'll just drop in my number. You guys can WhatsApp me for any further queries that you have, or you can give me a call. If I don't take a call, you can WhatsApp me. I'll reply for sure. All right, guys. Thank you. Thanks a lot. I'll see you at the conference.